Gentlemen, today we're going to be talking about Spektra Xion S. It's going to be an overview, and also we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts. We're going to talk a little bit about cartridges and also about power supply and connectivities. And I say connectivity because there has been a lot of questions about the type of cable to use with the Spektra Xion. So I want to walk you through, guys, through some options. And let's start with the way the machine comes in the box. So we're going to switch to the overhead camera right here. So this is how you should expect your Spektra Xion. Currently, you can get the Spektra Xion from any of our distributors worldwide, and also from our website, micropigmentation.com. So we have quite a few distributors, and we're confirming more distributors worldwide very, very, very soon. So let me make sure that I'm live. Yes, I'm live. There you go. Sorry for the short notice. I wasn't actually expecting to make this video, but I saw a couple of comments on the MicroView website. People are having questions, so I'm like, you know what? Let me just make this video and actually address some of those concerns with you guys. So again, going back to the overhead camera, what I want to show you is the way the machine comes in the box. So this is what you should expect. This one is branded under MicroView because it is the only place where you can get this machine, and it is the version of the Scion that is actually streamlined for cosmetic tattooing. And we're going to talk about the differences between these two machines as well, because there is a little bit of confusion and people want to know the questions. But let's begin with the Scion S, and let me show you what you should expect in the box. So as you guys can see here, we have the box and we have the machine. Actually, let me switch to this one. There you go, because this one was actually a prototype of mine of the box. So here's the machine. You have obviously the machine. It is only available right now in the gunmetal color and the silver or chrome color. You should also find the additional cam right here. We are going to talk a little bit about this cam. Also in this little bag, you're going to find some tools. These are the tools that you're going to use to remove the cam. It's very, very, very simple to do so. So the machine is actually not very big. A lot of people thought that the machine was actually bigger than this. What happened is that it's actually shorter than most micropigmentation devices out there. It measures about 110 millimeters, so or 11 centimeters. So it's very, very small if you compare my hand towards the machine, or even if you compare the size of a cartridge to the machine. It's not that big. Now, one thing that you guys are going to notice, it is the diameter here of the back of the machine is a bit larger from what most of you are used to see on a machine. And this is the reason why this is like this is because we actually engineer this motor to sustain long hours of tattooing, to provide artists with with a lot of speed, and with a lack of weight. That was actually the opposite. And this is the motor that also you're going to be removing to exchange the stroke, and I am going to be talking about the stroke in just a moment. So a lot of you guys probably are going to see this offline, because again, I just decided to do the video, went live. There's not a lot of promotion for this video, but if you happen to be watching the video and you have any other question, I'll be glad to actually address any questions you guys may have. Now, one of the main questions that people ask me throughout this couple of weeks is that what kind of cable can I use with the machine? And if you guys go to the website right now, you're going to realize that under microview.com, we have several combos. So if you are shopping from our website, you got to make sure that you're picking the combo with a cable if you don't have the cable. Because right now you can get the machine alone, the machine with a cable, the machine with a power supply, and the machine with the foot switch as well. So basically the combo: machine, cable, power supply, and foot switch. Some of our distributors are starting to adopt the same modality, posting the machine with different options. So make sure you ask them if you don't have a cable, because you're going to need a cable that has an RCA end. And I'm going to switch again. I'm going to actually put the machine right here really quick. So we're switching cameras again. And you're going to need a cable like this. The one that I have right here is the 90-degree cable. There is another one that's straight, so you can choose whichever cable you prefer. I'm going to show you guys the differences between both cables. And this cable has in the other end, I'll show you right now, what is called a 1/4-inch jack. Okay, so it's a 1/4-inch jack in one end. This is the one that goes to the power supply. and then we have the RCA, which is the one that goes inside the machine. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you guys how to connect the both. And again, I'm showing this because a lot of you guys are used to different cables, and for some of you this cable is actually something new. So you're going to connect the cable right here, the RCA in the back, and then the 1/4 inch actually goes in your power supply, right? So remember, the Scion S was done to work with most power supplies. Here we go. And we're going to connect it. I believe this is the one for the foot switch. I believe it's this one. Yeah, this is it. Yeah. So you're going to connect it in this one, okay? Most power supply have 2 holes, which the other one is actually for the foot switch. So you got to make sure that you're inserting it in the right connector, because if you don't connect in the one that's actually meant to be to power the machine and you connect it to in the other one for the foot switch, your machine is not going to work. And if that happens, all you have to do is switch cables from one connector to the other, and that way you are going to get the power flowing through the cable. So not a big deal. You can use a lot of cables that are out there. You can buy cables also on Amazon. However, this cable right here has some properties that you're not going to find in every other cable out there. Number one, it's only one piece. So what that means is that the entire cable is actually one continuous piece. Okay, so we have the cable, then it has the jack injected. So this is going to actually avoid your cable wearing out quick from bending. So this cable we have designed it so it actually flexes, and this is going to allow you to use the cable for longer period of time, where if the cable is actually a metallic housing and then you have the cable housing, there is more room for play right there. Also, on the other side of the cable, you're also going to realize that it's a one piece. So we have the cable sleeve where the 2 strands are actually contained inside, and then the mold injected housing and the jack. So this is only one piece. This is a very, very durable cable. It is a bit thicker than other cables. We're actually working on a smaller version of this cable, but this cable is actually designed for tattooing, meaning that you can run it over with your chair. It's going to sustain many hours of work. So some people have addressed to me that they are having problem with connectivity and fluctuation, just to realize that when we swap a cable, the problem is actually solved, and the cable start actually internally misfiring or breaking inside the connector, causing the short circuit or that fluctuation in the performance of the tattoo machine. So one thing to keep in mind, if you experience any of these issues with any other tattoo machine or a micropigmentation device out there, switch a cable. And if by switching a cable the problem is solved, most likely the issue was actually the cable. And the thinner the cable is, the more chances you have to actually destroy that cable or things to go wrong. So I know it's nice to have a very tiny cable, but at the same time, it's also nice to have reliable connectivity throughout your session. So I always recommend to go with a high quality cable, and try to stay with a cable that is a one-piece cable, all fused into one, because there are less chances of play and things breaking inside the device in the cable. Now, let's talk about the other point, which is power supply. A lot of you guys have been asking, what kind of power supply can I use for my Scion S, and is this machine compatible with other power supplies out there? So there are several answers for you guys. Number one, most power supplies that are designed for tattooing are going to work for this machine. In fact, power supplies that are actually designed for micropigmentation, the internals are exactly the same. We're applying voltage to the device, and then we're controlling the voltage. And a lot of people have some confusion between voltage and speed. In reality, we're not controlling the speed with any power supply, even those that display the speed as hertz or cycles per second. So if you have a micropigmentation device that says speed, in reality what you're controlling is actually the voltage output of that unit. The voltage output of any unit is going to cause the motor to go faster or slower. So just like a little electric train, as you dial the knob, the train goes faster, and as you dial in the other orientation, the train actually goes slower. Exactly the same. These machines have motors, so the more voltage that flows into the motor, the faster the machine is going to run, and the lower the voltage is applied to the machine, the lower is the speed. So speed and voltage is actually the same thing. It's just a matter how the different manufacturers decide to display on this machine. This one right here displays volts. You know, it's very, very simple. This is a critical power supply, and it says 8.5. 8.5 stands for 8.5 volts, okay? So as long as you understand what 8.5 volts stand when you're tattooing, basically, you know, you're going to run the machine and you're going to feel if the machine is running too fast or too slow. Then you can start actually judging your machine by the volts that you have, that you are being applied, that you are applying to the machine. So there is not a need to be confused or think that a power supply that displays speed is actually better than a power supply that displays voltage. In reality, both are doing exactly the same thing. So that is question number one that I wanted to address. You can use both power supplies. So the secret is the compatibility between the cable that you're using, the one that goes in the power supply, and the jack that is available in the power supply. So like I mentioned before, most tattooing power supplies are going to have, are going to fit this jack. So you're going to have an opening. Let me just show you again. I'm going to go overview right here. You're going to have this, these holes right here. You know, they're a little bit bigger than those 3.5 millimeter jacks, kind of like iPhone headphone jacks. This one is bigger. So as long as you have this one, you are going to be able to use the cable that I just mentioned before, which is this one right here. Now, if you happen to have a power supply that have the little ones, the 3.5 millimeter jacks, the one that look like headphone jacks, you can actually simply get an adapter that goes from this connector right here, to 3.5. So you can actually search on Amazon for actually 1/4 inch female to 3.5 male connector, and you're gonna see a lot of options. So all you're gonna do is you're gonna plug that reduction right here and then go to the power supply that has the tiny connector, which is the 3.5, or the one that looks like a headphone jack. So no need to panic, okay? So if you have one of those power supply, you can use the Scion with those power supply. One thing that you have to make sure is that the power supply at least can supply about 500 milliamps, okay? And again, this is not something that is crucial because I'm aware that most devices out there, they actually supply that, but there are some people that are trying to run this machine with Chinese super cheap power supply, and that is not recommended. Number one, you're never gonna get the amount of power required to power this machine, therefore you're not going to get the output force that you're expecting from, you know, from a quality machine. So a machine is as good as the power supply that you're using with a machine, okay? So you can have an excellent machine or you can have an excellent car, but if you put like cheap gas or you don't take care of it, it's not going to perform as per spec. Same with the tattoo machine or the micropigmentation device. Always try to use reputable brands. You know, I always suggest that, you know, if you're going to invest good money on a device, you also invest good money on a power supply. For the simple fact that good quality products are not going to let you down. And if anything happened, most reputable products, they have warranties. And, you know, it's easy to get a replace or service. So that's that right there. A lot of people ask me because I've seen me with this power supply in the videos. And again, this is the Atom X. You can get it again at micropigmentation.com. And it's very, very inexpensive power supply. It is $190, $95 or something like that, $195, I believe. And the way you use this power supply is very, very simple. You have the up and down arrows. Those up and down arrows are going to allow you to increase the voltage. As you guys can see, the numbers are increasing. And as I press down, the numbers are going down. Now, these two right here, they're banks. Okay, right here, this one is set as shader. And if I press, it's a SHD, stands for shader. And if I press right here, it's liner, right? Now, don't get confused because it says liner or shader all the time. You have to line or shade with either button. It's just a reference. It's a bank, okay? So if I'm on a liner, I can actually record a value, let's say 7 volts. And then I can record another value in the shader that it's 8.5. So if I'm gonna be doing maybe contouring or shading a lip, for example, I may just wanna have those two programmed right there. So That way you know that when you go to perform the procedure, you don't have to start tapping on numbers to get the right amount of speed, and you can simply shuffle, left or right by clicking the side arrows to go to one parameter or the other. And let me show you again. So let's say right now it's at 3 volts, and I can actually go higher if I want. And let's say I want to use the machine, pretty low, let's say 6 volts. And I am going to record that in the bank. So that's it. Now I switch to the other bank, which is called shader bank, and now it's at 8.6. So by simply clicking on the other one, now I'm in 6. So I can actually jump back and forth between parameters by simply tapping the side buttons. And also, once I'm here, I can tweak those parameters. And where I leave them is where it's going to be. So if I go back to this other parameter, 8.6, and I come back, it's going to be in the last setting that I recorded it or left it at while I was doing the procedure. So very, very simple. Most power supplies are the same. Even those that are specialized for micropigmentation, they're going to have the lip, the liner, the eyebrow. In reality, what those are just banks, okay? It's one bank that you record certain voltage, which is going to tell the machine to run a certain speed, and the other one is going to make it run a little bit faster or lower, and the other one and so on. So there's no need for actually having a power supply that tells you liner, lip, or eyebrow, or contouring, or whatever of that. I'm just trying to be honest with you guys. It's basically exactly the same thing. And I think that the more informed you guys are about the device, the better decisions you're going to be able to make when you purchase equipment. So this is what actually goes behind the liner, the lip, and the eyebrow, or whatever other parameter the different manufacturers may want to have on their units. So that is that. Now this power supplies, this one right here is tethered. So this one has a different adapter. Let me just put the machine right here really quick, and I'm going to show you again, switching cameras again. This one has the power adapter that goes to the wall. Obviously, if this is unplugged, you got nothing, because the actual juice is in the box that goes plugged to the wall, right? Kind of like a computer. This is basically the same thing. There's another little transformer or power brick that goes plugged to the wall, just like your computer charger. The only difference that this one doesn't charge, so it has to be plugged in for it to work. And that's it. So I really like this power supply because it's very, very small. It can suit you for anything, especially if you do trade shows, conventions, and stuff like that, and you want to be mobile. It's a good option to have this small power supply. Now, Microview is designing 2 units that are going to be available sometime this year, and I'm really excited to actually let you know, guys, that we have actually put so much research into bringing a power supply that is going to be the ideal power supply for tattooing and even micropigmentation, because we're getting the cross-contamination factor away from the mix. So I'm going to be giving you more details, and some of you guys have seen some of the videos that I've been posting, but there are a lot of good news for you guys coming up in the upcoming months. So what else? Now, what I want to show you is we're going to talk a little bit about cartridges. So I am going to plug the machine again. Just do it again right here. So put the cable there, and we're going to plug the machine. Now, I want to talk about adjustability of the give, and I did a video about that, and still people have questions. So hopefully this video is going to be a little bit more thorough and straight to the point. So if you want to adjust the height of the machine, remember, the key feature of this machine that makes this machine completely different than any other machine is the fact that you can change 2 things. One thing is the adjustability of the strike of the needle, so this machine can hit the skin harder or softer, and you can dictate that. And the other thing is the displacement of the needle, the stroke, or how far the needle sticks out from the tube or from the tip. So this is the very first machine that you can alter those 2 parameters. Now, why you would want to alter those 2 parameters? Well, a lot of the advanced artists, they actually may opt to have different depth set up in the machine already. Rather than start changing their technique all the time, they may set the machine with a shorter stroke or with a longer stroke, right? So this is a way to control how much the needle sticks out from the tip of the needle cartridge. The other thing that you can do is you can actually modify the give adjustment, and I am going to show you right now, guys, and I'm going to answer some of your questions in just a little bit. You can actually, you can actually adjust the give of the machine. And what you're going to do is you're going to dial this thing right here. And now this thing has an S and an H. The S stands for soft and the H stands for hard. Let me actually zoom in a little bit while I do this with you guys right here. Now you guys can see we have an S right there and an H, right? So twisting this thing towards the H is going to give me harder setting. Now when you feel that it stops, don't force this. You're going to back off one. You never want to leave it completely locked. And also when you go towards the softer setting, you're going to do exactly the same thing. And once you feel that you reach the end, you're going to back off one more. So right there, you are in both of the extreme. Right now I'm super soft, and if I go in the other direction, I'm going to be super, super hard. But you can actually go in between. So you can be kind of like 6 clicks away, and you're going to be in about in between, which is great for most average work. Now, a lot of people may prefer for contouring or for those bigger rounds to actually have a solid head, where those people that use magnums or do a lot of shading or the ombre effect, they may want to use a little bit of give to get a little bit of recoil, which is exactly what we are doing here. By dialing this knob right there inside the machine, what we're doing is we are adjusting the recoil, meaning that this the needle is going to go in and it's going to back off. And the more softness we add, the more recoil you're going to have. This is going to translate in less snagging on the skin. It's going to allow you to build your transitions. Let's say you're working an eyelid, that you're doing some transition shading eyeliner, smoky eyeliner, or smoky shading in a lip as well. You can actually work those blends a little bit more without causing too much trauma to the skin. And sometimes a lot of swelling in the skin is related to the impact of the needle. So needles that strike too hard are going to cause the skin to get even more red and irritated. Another thing that you can control with that, by actually adapting to having a little bit of recoil in your machine, is the healing process. The healing process is going to be improved because we are causing less trauma to the skin. And usually when we're applying transition, what we're trying to do is we're trying to control the depth of the needle. We're trying to control how much pigment we're depositing in the skin. And the deeper we go sometimes, the harder or the darker the effect of the transition is. And the more superficial we go, the lighter it looks. But again, that's not always the case, because dilution of the pigment also can give you that effect. And a combination of both can actually give you exactly what you're looking for, resulting into a procedure that is going to heal really, really nice, really fast, and it's going to retain a lot of the color. I've seen, now that I've been actually with this machine and talking to a lot of artists, I've been seeing heal results, and I see results that are completely fresh. I see them healed. I see some of the problems that some of the artists are having, that a lot of the work is looking amazing when they do it the first time, and then it heals and they see a lot of dropout in the color. And a lot of the artists like Terry, for example, Amy, and also there's so many girls right here, Amy Connors as well. The work that they're doing, they're mastering that give effect, they're mastering the machine, they're understanding the speed, and they're achieving amazing results. Stacy, for example, that she does a lot of nipple reconstruction. Of course, she's been doing amazing work before the Scion, but the Scion indeed helped her really take it a step further, helped her achieve results faster, heal faster, and that's very important. It is very important, the heal process, I see a lot of artists doing amazing work and taking the picture, and then when they see those jobs back, they are surprises, and a lot of the times, the work has to be retouched. By understanding depth, by understanding and spending the time to master the technique of the hand and the technique, how the pigment is applied to the skin, you can minimize the retouch. Okay, so this is the reason why a lot of artists also are using the Spektra Xion S with single needle or Type 3 buck pin to do amazing stroke work that basically does not require touch-up, and if so, not as much as other procedures. So one thing to keep in mind right there. Now, let's talk a little bit about cartridges. The other question that people ask me is, what kind of cartridges can I use with this machine? And again, you can use any cartridge that there is out there for tattooing, and you can find buck pin, you can find standard needles. And one thing that I wanted to address, guys, actually in the permanent makeup forum, the PMU forum that Terry Lively runs, someone was having some question about diameter of the needle and what is a buck pin. And one thing that I want to tell you is that I don't think a lot of guys really understand what the 08 stands for, or the 10 caliber needle stands for, or the 12 caliber stand for. So just to make you understand what this works, buck pin usually is referred to needles that are thinner than standard, and the standard is the number 12. Okay, the number 12 is basically the thickest needle that you can find for tattooing, for acupuncture, because most needle comes from acupuncture, even for micropigmentation and tattooing. And then you have the number 10. So the number 10 and the number 08, doesn't mean 8 needles or doesn't mean 10 needles. What it means is the diameter of the needle. And the 10 comes from 10,000 of an inch. So the diameter of the needle is equal at 10,000 of an inch, which equal, if I'm not mistaken, 0.25 millimeter. That's the number 10. The number 8, or the 08, stands for 8,000 of an inch, which stands in millimeter for 0.20 millimeters. And the number 12 stands for 12,000 of an inch, which stands for 0.28 millimeters in diameter. So that is at a glance what those numbers mean. A lot of people confuse those numbers with actual rounds, and they say, wow, I was expecting 8 needles, when in reality the first number is going to tell you guys, let me see, the 10. Well, some people even flip that, so you got to be really careful. I've seen some manufacturers put the first 2 numbers related to the caliber and the second number related to the needle, and I've seen, especially things that come from China, and then people put the needle round, like let's say if it's a 14 round shader, they will put 14 OA, meaning that it's a 14 round shader, 14 needles, single needles together, and then the OA stands for the buck pin, which is 8,000 of an inch. Every needle has the diameter of 8,000 of an inch, which equals to 0.25 millimeters in diameter. A little bit confusing, but make sure to actually rewind and go back if you have any questions. I'm probably going to post a chart later on and to help you guys understand that. So again, use needle with cartridge only, okay? Cartridge only needle with membrane only. Cartridges with membrane only. The reason why you want to use needle with membrane only, because you don't want to cause any cross-contamination inside the machine. Remember, every time you touch this cartridge with your hand, you're going to cross-contaminate. So the moment you put the cartridge in the machine, you're contaminating the grip, but the grip actually comes off, and it can be sterilized and it can be autoclaved. So you can sterilize the grip with steam autoclaves, or you can actually wipe it with cold sterilization product from the outside, from the inside, and also I recommend you guys clean the locking mechanism. This way, you are going to ensure that you have a clean grip, a sterile grip prior every single procedure. Of course, bag your gear, and I'm going to do another video showing you guys different methods to easily bag this machine and make it comfortable to work, but I'm not going to be addressing that right now in this video. So a lot of people ask me to recommend brands. I mean, I do it to some of my friends and stuff like that, but because I don't want to endorse any particular brand, do your research, get sample needles, and try them all, and only work with those that have membrane. So I think the first question that you guys may ask any supplier is does the needle have membrane? If the needle doesn't have membrane, do not even risk it, okay? Because you're not only risking your customer, you're risking yourself, you're risking the device. A lot of things that you're compromising by not using a needle with a membrane. And ink backflow is going to happen at some point, no matter what, no matter how much attention you pay. So the membrane is the only thing that is going to ensure that there's no ink going inside the device, okay? And then you have nothing to worry about but then sanitizing your grip. Okay, so we talked about power supply, we talked about cable, we talked about needles. What else? Now, style and speed. That is another question that a lot of people want to know. Remember that before I mentioned that these power supplies don't really have a speed readout. This in particular, there are other ones that do have them. Some of them, they display them as hertz. Some of them display them as CPS, cycles per second. And some other power supply, they will show, you know, the name liner eyebrow, which is not telling us that much about the speed or the voltage. So I recommend that you guys go very, very simple and straightforward with this. You know, just go with a power supply that gives you numbers, because voltage is always going to remain 1 volt, 2 volt, 3 volt, 3.5, 3.1. And just learn what the voltage does. You know, it's very, very simple. Like I always say before, start very, very slow. I think the lowest that you can go with this machine, you can go really low, but the lowest you can go to actually make use of a stroke in this machine is going to be around the 5 volts, okay? That's going to be in the very, very, very low end. You can bring this machine as high as 10 volts, okay? Now, 10 volts is really, really fast. It's probably not for single needle work, okay? And that's the balance that you guys have to try to keep, okay? The more speed you have and the thinner the needle is, or the less amount of needles you have, the less resistance you have, and the more you're going to be cutting rather than injecting pigment. So that is something to keep in mind. So a tip for you guys is to actually go really, really low, like around the 6 volts, 5 volts, and start trying to work slow on a customer, or you can even practice on a fruit, to be honest with you, if you're new to this device. And because every single device is going to be completely different, and it may sound a little bit amateur to say that practice on a fruit, right? But again, we're tattooing the eye, and it's much better to mess up a fruit, an apple, an orange, than actually going straight to a customer with a new device that you don't have any experience. So practice. There's also some practice skin for for tattooing. I've seen some with eyeliners, with lips and stuff like that. Those are not the best example neither, because nothing is actually comparable to the skin or exactly like the skin. But again, minimizing the risk to actually mess up on a customer is always, a better call. So practice on an apple or an orange or something like that. And again, this device, another thing that people want to know, can anyone buy this device? And the answer is no. You have to be a licensed tattooer. You have to have experience. You have to be in the micropigmentation or tattooing world to get this device. And our distributors are not going to sell it to you if you don't have validation that you are a professional artist. So this is not the device for those that want to take matters into their own hands, nor we recommend that to anyone, nor we cater to those type of people that we consider that's not the way that the industry grows, by just giving the device to anyone that has a little bit of money. So guys, keep that in mind. And don't get mad at us, okay? And don't get mad at the distributor if you're not getting a device, but that's the way it goes. We're trying to protect what we love, okay? Now, people want to know the difference between the Spektra Xion and the Spektra Xion S. And I am going to show you guys the difference, okay? So I am going to switch again cameras really, really quick. Main difference, let me actually zoom out now, this way, right? So the main difference of these machines are the one for tattooing. Well, first of all, it's a different color scheme. It's black, it's thicker, it's a little bit heavier. It has bigger stroke for more punch, for more force. And this one is thinner, tapers down, it's a lot lighter, and it has it has a 2.5 and a 1.8 millimeter included with this machine, whereas the Scion for tattooing has a 3.2 and a 3.7. Pretty long strokes, and of course, we don't want to tattoo eyes or stuff like that with such a long stroke, unless you are really, really experienced with the device. So this is the one that we have for micropigmentation, and we have streamline. Now, what is the difference between the 2.5 stroke versus the 1.8 stroke? Okay, so let me see. Actually, yeah, it's right here. Yeah, this one right here has the 2.5. The 2.5 is the one that you're going to find inside the machine and included with the motor. See the 2.5 right there? It's right there. It says 2.5. All right, so the 2.5 is the one that you are going to find inside the machine. So this is the one that we recommend, that if you are new with a machine, don't even try to tamper with the machine or start changing things. The machine is actually set up to allow anyone that has never tried this machine before to start tattooing. And how you're going to be controlling things, like I mentioned before, you're going to be controlling parameters only with the volts. So you're going to start slow, you're going to start at around 5 volts, and you're going to start applying your procedure like you would do it I mentioned that you can start practicing before you actually hit the skin. And by simply regulating the volts, you are going to be able, sorry, I forgot to change the cameras. By simply regulating the volts, you're going to be able to get more speed or lower speed. And at that point, once you are very, very familiar with the different parameters and the different speed that every volts represent, you can start tweaking things around. Now, just to give you an idea, the 1.8 is a very short stroke, and it's a stroke that is ideal for those artists that like to penetrate very, very little the skin and like to work really, really fast. So the shorter the stroke is, the more speed you get. Also, the less penetration you get. And why would you want to have less penetration? Well, you may want to have a longer stroke, like a 2.5, let's say for outlining or for solid color. You're doing a lip, right? And you want to put that color with the least amount of effort. And again, and the 2.5 is going to be great. But what some artists are doing is they're having either two machine setups, one with a short stroke, one with a long stroke. And what they're doing is they're using different machines to work faster where they want to work faster, rather than start tweaking and changing things and unplugging things and replugging things. So you can have two machines connected, and you can have a machine running fast, for when you need faster work with less penetration, and then you can have a machine with a 2.5 for for the more color intense work. So you may be outlining with a 2.5, and then if you want to do that feather effect all around the lip or the smoky shadows, you can actually go with a shorter stroke. And again, these strokes are gonna apply to different artists differently. So this is not just automatically because you have a shorter stroke, you're doing amazing smooth work, because it's 50% the machine and 50% is the hand of the artist. In fact, I would say that it's 90% the hand of the artist and only 10% the machine that you're using, to be honest with you. So again, give yourself a chance to try different things, and for the first month, don't tweak the machine, get really familiar with it, because you're gonna be able to achieve a lot of great results just with that. Once you feel that you want more, that's when you start exploring changing the cams and tweaking the give setting, and exploring different routes. And again, it wouldn't take you too long, but I say that on an average, people like to stick to this machine a couple of months. Let's say if you work almost every day, a couple of months, just to get familiar, very well familiar with the machine, do several procedures in different areas, and see what works best. And then from there, you can start trying the different things. So that's that. Let me actually go back to the chat. We have some questions right here. And Johanna Cruz, hey Gaston, thanks for all the time you take to educate us artists about your machine. It's great to see how you're involved and passionate. Thank you so much about that. I do have a question about finger cuts. I've decided to not use any latest product just because there are so many people that are allergic to it. Yeah, of course, I agree there. And are the one that you're selling going to be nitrile? Yes, the finger cuts that I'm using are actually nitrile. Nitrile doesn't cause any allergy, or at least not to most people. So yes, I completely agree. Stay away from latex, and even for gloves, And but again, I'm gonna do another video explaining how to back this machine, the different options, and that's gonna be upcoming in next episode. So guys, I think this is it. This is what I wanted to address today. Outline some of the questions that I've seen popping lately. I'll be making more of these videos addressing questions, and in the upcoming days, should you have any questions, should you watch this video offline or after the archive, after I'm done with this, feel free to actually interact with this video, because I am going to be checking this comments, and I'm going to be responding to a lot of the comments, and also some of the folks like Terry Lively and all the girls that are part of the Cosmetic Forum also going to be peeking this video and helping you guys out. Again, professional only, guys. That's what we want to keep it. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you again in another episode of Micro Review Live. Take care. Good night.